We're going to go to the White House now, and new questions about the president's legal strategy after the leak of a 20-page letter from Trump's legal team to special counsel Robert Mueller, declaring broad power to shut down investigations, avoid questioning by prosecutors. And the president's top lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, even suggested to me that Trump has the power to pardon himself. Our senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega has all the latest. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hey, George. Good morning to you. Even the president's own Republican allies are now sounding the alarm about this notion that the president can pardon himself. But Giuliani says it won't happen. The consequences would be disastrous. President Trump's legal team floating the controversial idea just as the Russia investigation is heating up. His personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, telling George the president can pardon himself, but he won't.
Do you and the president's attorneys believe the president has the power to pardon himself?
He's not, but he probably does. I mean, he has no intention of pardoning himself, but he probably does. It doesn't say he can't.
Giuliani then called a self-pardon unthinkable, saying it would probably lead to immediate impeachment. But back in January, the president's legal team wrote a 20-page memo to special counsel Robert Mueller, obtained by the New York Times and ABC News, arguing broad presidential powers, saying the president could not have obstructed the investigation because, quote, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, that would amount to him obstructing himself, and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise his power to pardon if he so desired. The president's lawyers also strongly pushing back against a sit-down with Mueller, despite the president's repeated assertions that he wants an in-person interview.
I would love to speak. I would love to. Nobody wants to speak more than me.
Giuliani now says it's not looking likely.
I have to just be honest, I mean, with leaning toward not.
One of the reasons? Changing stories, like the one about what really happened after that now infamous Trump Tower meeting with Don Jr., Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, and a Russian lawyer whom they were told had dirt on Hillary Clinton. Initially, the White House denied the president himself dictated a misleading statement about why his son took that meeting.
He certainly didn't dictate.
But in their letter, the president's lawyers for the first time concede he did indeed dictate the statement.
This is the reason you don't let the president testify. Our recollection keeps changing.
So if Mueller were to subpoena the president to testify, Giuliani says they would fight that in court. He says the Mueller team has everything it needs, from documents to witnesses. They maintain, George, that Mueller does not need the president to wrap up this investigation.
Cecilia, on another front, we're going to see the First Lady coming to a public event, the Gold Star families at the White House for the first time today in 3 weeks.
Yeah, George, so for now, cameras are not expected to be inside this event, but we are told that she will be attending this event for those families here at the White House. It's been 24 days since we've laid eyes on the First Lady. Of course, she had that benign procedure for a benign kidney condition last month. She didn't accompany the president to Camp David this weekend. She's not going to the G7 this coming weekend or now the Singapore summit next week. Her office, George, says that she's been busy with meetings and planning for things like the upcoming 4th of July celebration.
Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Let's talk about the president's legal strategy now with our legal team, Dan Abrams and Christie. And Dan, let me begin with you. Mayor Giuliani walked back several of the claims yesterday in that letter, but the letter was a pretty stunning assertion of presidential power.
That's right, and we should be clear about that. The letter poses radical legal theories. Number one, the idea that if the president were subpoenaed, which I don't think he will be, the fact that he could basically ignore the subpoena, that he wouldn't have to go to court to even fight it. And I think that almost no one in the legal community would agree with that. There are Supreme Court cases that are relevant to this, not directly on point, but relevant, which would certainly indicate that the president likely would have to testify. Number two, on this obstruction of justice, yes, it's true that the president likely won't be indicted as a sitting president for anything. But the notion that he simply can't obstruct justice, well, that was one of the articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon, against Bill Clinton. So, of course, a president can obstruct justice. Doesn't mean he'd get charged as a sitting president.
Yeah, they went on to say he could shut down any investigation for any reason. And I guess the bottom line, Chris, of this 20-page letter to Mueller is don't hold your breath for an interview.
Yeah, no, this is what we've been saying all along. There's not going to be an interview. I mean, there just can't be. For a whole variety of reasons, there shouldn't be. And so the president, as much as he may think he wants to testify and meet with Bob Mueller, he shouldn't. And I would say one other thing that, what you're seeing now is a change in not only legal strategy, but in the quality of the legal team. That kind of letter indicates to you that the president was operating with a B team of legal representatives before this. And now he's got people who really understand, I think, much better what his liabilities are and also what the opportunities are from both a legal and a public relations perspective to move this thing in his direction.
And Dan, the president himself yesterday on Twitter opened up a new argument as well. He's now saying that he should have been told about the investigations, both about this FBI informer and the fact that Paul Manafort, his campaign chairman, was being investigated.
As a candidate, he's saying he should have been told, right? This idea that the FBI should start disclosing to a presidential candidate anyone who they're investigating. I mean, the bottom line is, and I think Governor Christie can probably...
Oh, I see him shaking his
well,
head.
no, I mean, I'm sure he can tell you that people probably warned him against Manafort and warned him about issues with Manafort having nothing to do with knowing on the FBI investigation.
Listen, I did this for 7 years, George, as you know, as U.S. Attorney. I don't care what you were running for. We're not telling you. We're not a private investigation firm to help you with vetting your people who you employ in your campaign. The fact is that the reason we operate that way is because in the Justice Department, we're supposed to keep those things secret. We're legally bound to keep them secret unless and until we have some type of charges to announce. And people want it that way because you don't want every rumor and every investigation that's run down by the Justice Department out there in public.
Finally, Dan, we also saw yesterday the president's team finally admitted that he actually dictated that Trump Tower statement, even though they never corrected the record in public.
Well, and had repeatedly said publicly that it wasn't dictated. This wasn't a sort of gray area. They said he wasn't involved. I mean, Jay Sekulow told you he wasn't involved in this. And now they're not just saying he was, they're saying he dictated it.
Listen, you see two different things quickly, George. You see what happens privately with the lawyers hanging lanterns on the problems that are created by misstatements that come from the White House at times.
Thank you both very much, Dan. You're going to be back later to talk about another president, Abe Lincoln, and your new book, Lincoln's Last Trial.
Thanks.
Forward to that. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.